Welcome back, my pretties, to another Sam's Pretty Paranormal, where tonight we're going to be reading out of a spooky book that I've had for a very long time. It's a seance that leads to murder. So it's like all of my favorite things combined. Spooky, paranormal, true crime. So I thought this would be really fun to do. I'm gonna read just a few chapters and we'll just see where it goes. It's called The Seance. I've had this book. You know what? I've never read this book. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I've never read this book. I've never took the time to read it. So I wanted to, a video of and give it a whirl. Because I thought, wow, I was thinking about different ideas, filming ideas. I've made quite a few up to this point, and I thought this would be really fun. And if this is a hit, if you enjoy this, I can film, either film reading more, like drop videos of me reading this and we go along together and read the book, or I can read it live, which I don't know. I'm kind of thinking maybe leave the lives to like the fun stuff that we usually do, and then I'll drop a video maybe on a different day. So I'll be uploading maybe twice a week. We can read books, so I can upload like on Wednesday. I'll drop a video of us reading a book, and you can follow along. And then on Fridays we'll just continue our regular Sam's Pretty Paranormal live, and that way I can chat with all you guys without having to, read. But I wanted to give a shout out to Amazon really quick. I think this is pronounced Himuncum? Anyways, this is, I don't know if you can see the name, but this is a book light, and this is the best book light ever. You can change the brightness, you can change the color light. Like, I read with this all the time because I like to read at night when everyone's going to bed, and I can have peace and quiet to read my book. So I'm gonna hook this up. Oh, let's do ASMR. Ooh, I hope that was ASMR. I don't know how that turned out. That is crazy. Okay. The Seance by Joan Lowry Nixon. Now, I just want to make a note right now that the books that I typically read are not this. Like I said, I've had this book for a while, and I've just never took time to read it. Now, I can show you. So the light just attaches to your book, and it just goes in the book, and you can tilt it. It is fabulous. It is so fabulous for reading at night or just in lighting that you cannot see very well. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. Okay. I melted back from the window to keep my nightgown from reflecting the pale light of the swelling moon, flattening myself against the rigid window frame. I held my shoulder where the sharp edge of wood had rubbed it and watched Sarah Martin sneak home. A car had rolled up to park in front of our gate, its light cut but the engine still running, and the sound had awakened me. Sometimes the guys Sarah went out to meet dropped her off at the corner. This one had taken her all the way home. As the front door on the passenger side swung open, I turned away. I didn't want to see who the driver was. Above all, I didn't want to see Sarah kiss him goodnight. Slowly, I climbed back into bed. I heard the car drive away, and soon there was a tiny click squeak as the front door opened and shut. Sarah climbed the stairs and went to her room with no more noise than a cat needing a cushion before curling into it. She thought no one heard her comings and goings, but I'm a light sleeper, unlike Aunt Mel, and Sarah's after-dark movements had become a new pattern in my nights, mixed with waking and dreaming and strange, desperate, hurting feeling of being totally alone. I was sorry Sarah had come into the life I shared in this big house with Aunt Mel. Aunt Melvame, my mother's aunt, has been parenting me since I was 4, when my mother died. My father didn't even know about me because he'd been drafted into the Army and killed in a truck accident out in California. But Aunt Mel and I get along fine with no complaints. I guess that's the way it should be. Sarah came to live with us just 4 months ago, when the county welfare agent was frantic to find a foster home for her, and our preacher told her to ask Aunt Mel for help. Aunt Mel would never turn down a request from the preacher. At first, I hated Sarah. Then I just thought about how glad I'd be when she left. Aunt Mel said we should enjoy our companionship since we were both 17, but age was just the only thing we had in common. Sometimes I thought there were 2 Sarahs, the brash one who wore her sweaters and blouses a size too small and had every guy old enough to be grown out of pimples and pudginess chasing after her, and the silent one who sneaked from the house at night when she thought no one was watching her. She'd vanish into the darkness with no more noise than a wisp of a smoke. I was jealous of her right from the start. I admit it. Aunt Mel says I'm not skinny, I'm gaunt, and gauntness runs in our family. But it's hard to be gaunt up against someone who is put together like Sarah. But I was tired of thinking about her, and I buried my head into my goose-down pillow, batting at the ends until it puffed around. Turning the page until it puffed around my face. I wadded the edge of the quilt into the warm place under my chin. In the distance, I heard the soft hoot of an owl and vaguely wondered if I were the only one in town who heard it. There are some around these parts who swear that an owl's hoot after midnight means death for someone. Wow. I shuddered a little in my warm cocoon and fell asleep. In the morning, I staggered through the ritual of getting ready for school. As soon as I went downstairs and slid into my chair at the kitchen table, Aunt Mel said, "Morning, Lauren." She strode across the room and slapped a plate of steaming scrambled eggs in front of me. I stared at the shiny white streamers that tangled with the yellow lumps and groaned, "Aunt Mel, you know I don't like eggs. Every young person needs a certain number of eggs for good health, cholesterol or no cholesterol," she said, as though that settled the matter forever. I suppose it did. Her rules were tightly drawn as the gray hair she pulled up into a polished bun on top of her head. I reached for the plate of buttered toast, and my eyes met Sarah's clear blue ones. Her slow smile, sugared cream, spilled from the smudgeness of knowing things I didn't know, being where I had never been and might never go. Aunt Mel seated herself at the end of the long wooden table and looked from Sarah to me and back to Sarah, her head swiveling like the referees at a tennis match. She cradled a steaming cup of tea in her long fingers. "Beats me why you 2 girls can't be friends," she said. I looked down at my plate and took a large mouthful of eggs, trying not to taste them. I followed with a gulp of orange juice. "Aunt Mel," I said, "I can't find my new bra, the white one. Did you see it when you did the wash?" She thought a minute and nodded. "It might have got into Sarah's dresser drawer by mistake." Sarah giggled. "If I find it, I'll be sure to return it to you, Lauren. It wouldn't do me any good. I outgrew that size when I was 12. The toast was a brick wall, and I bit through it easily, chomping it to bits. I was ready to take on the walkway and gate next, but Aunt Mel interrupted. "Sarah's gonna add to your problem." "Watch your time," she said. "Y'all are running late." "Does that mean I don't have to finish my eggs?" I asked. "It means eat faster," she said. Sarah was already standing on the porch, looking bored by the time I grabbed my books. I hurried out the door, and she kept pace with me. We walked for no more than half a block in silence, past Fant and Feeney Lester's tidy yard, and past the Swayze's clutter of tricycles and tennis shoes before Sarah spoke. "You know Roberta Campion?" "Sure," I said. "Our school isn't so big that you don't know everyone in it." Roberta's family was new in town last year. They rented a house on its outskirts, but they didn't mingle with the townspeople. I should say that the people of the town didn't have much to do with Campions because they're new and different, being part Cajun from over Louisiana way. In this part of East Texas, near the wild, dense forest and swamp area called the Big Thicket, everybody has known everybody forever, and most of them are related in some way. They don't take much to outsiders. Dee Hoot, you might enjoy this book because this is in Texas, honey. Roberta was a strange... Sorry. That was not a part of the book for anyone listening, just to the audio. This is Sam's Pretty Paranormal for you. Okay. Roberta was a strange girl who kept to herself a lot. I didn't feel unfriendly, but I didn't know what to do with her. "She's psychic," Sarah said. "Bet you didn't know that. What's so special about that? Half the people in town can tell you when to plant beans and if you're going to have unexpected company because you dropped a fork, or if it's going to rain because there's a ring around the moon." "That's not the same thing," Sarah said, lifting her nose and looking important. "Roberta can contact the dead." I stumbled over a tree root that had broken through the sidewalk, caught my balance, and stopped in my tracks, staring at Sarah. "She's crazy, and out of spite," I added. "So are you for believing that garbage." Oh, God, here comes Sarah with her little things. "The trouble with you, Lauren, is that you spent all your life in this narrow little town and have no sophistication at all. Believing in that Halloween stuff is supposed to be sophistication." Sarah's fixing to catch hands. Sarah tugged at my arm. "Come on, we'll be late and Miss Dean will have my hide." The first bell rang as we reached the patch of lawn in front of the old brick building with its seal embedded over the door, like the eye of a cyclops. We dashed up the wide steps and into our classrooms. For a while I tried to cram geometric rules and historical dates into my head, and I forgot all about my conversation with Sarah. Allie brought it up at lunchtime. We were at a stained formica table in the corner of the large cafeteria, which has been painted a bile green for more years than anyone can remember. We were sharing her peanut butter sandwiches because I had forgotten my lunch. Allie leaned across the table and said, "This is confidential, strictly between us. I heard from someone who swears that it's true that Roberta Campion can hold seances and contact the dead." I sighed. Allie is my closest friend, and always has been, but just as she always been round and short with a disposition like toasted marshmallows. Okay, I don't know. She never varies, never changes, except for her hair. It's either as limp as the hair on a wet brown cocker spaniel or shocked into an electric charge of home permanent frizzies. Today it was limp, and she kept twisting it around her fingers. Was that someone Sarah Martin? I asked her. Allie's eyes and mouth widened at the same time. How did you guess? She asked. Then she blinked. Oh, of course. You live in the same house with Sarah. She'd certainly tell you. I don't believe all that stuff about Roberta. Allie reached across the table and grabbed my arm. We could try it, she said. If Roberta has a seance, we could go. Go where? A tray was plopped down next to me, and I watched Maddie Cartney climb over the bench and sit down. Maddie was throwing a lot of curses and a few other things in her talk just to drive her mother up the wall, and it was just getting to be such a habit that sometimes she used the words when her mother wasn't around anywhere. To a seance, Allie said, but don't tell anyone because it's confidential. Sarah didn't tell me it was a big secret, Maddie said. These girls, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. For an instant, Allie looked deflated as she watched Maddie spoon up her beef surprise. Then she righted herself and said, Are you going? No one's said there's anything to go to, Maddie answered. But Roberta is going to get a bunch of people together and hold a seance, Allie said. She added, At least I think she will. I shook my head. Can you imagine what the people in town would say if they knew there was going to be a seance? Aunt Mel would have a fit, and I bet a lot of parents would get mad enough to pop. Maddie began to look interested. She sucked the last bit of the mixture from the end of her spoon and said, All in all, going to have a seance might be fun. If Roberta's going to have one, put me down for it. But your mother, I began. Yeah, Maddie said with a smile. She stared into her plate. I wonder what I just ate. Oh my God, does anyone remember? Pause, we're pausing book. Does anyone remember the school lunches? I remember them specifically. They were altogether pretty good. I remember the school pizza, and it was, I don't know, it was one of my favorites. And then we had chicken filet. It wasn't Chick-fil-A, but it was like chicken patty. Those were pretty good, but I never did like the fries because they were so soggy and kind of cold. I don't know if that was happening for anyone else, but they kind of were. All right, we're back to the book. Sorry. The usual offering from the poison pantry, I said. Try not to think about it. We broke up in giggles, getting a stern look from the cafeteria monitor. Nothing more was said about the seance, and when I passed Roberta in the hallway as I was going to my English class, she seemed so small and plain. I didn't give the seance a second thought. I remembered it later and wondered why a shy mouse like Roberta could have become involved with voices from another world. It didn't make sense. I rounded a corner and bumped into a couple of the guys on the football team. They were leaning against the lockers talking to Sarah, hanging over her as though she were a double fudge sundae at half price. Gotta love that. And she was gazing up at them from under heavy eyelids, her lips wet and slightly parted. None of them noticed me. Was it one of you? I thought to myself. Did Sarah sneak out last night to meet one of you? If I'd paid attention to the car that had pulled up in front of the house in the dark, I might have known the answer. I promised myself to wish on the next load of hay I saw that Sarah would leave and would go somewhere else. Where? I didn't care. I just wanted Sarah Martin out of my life. That was chapter 1. We are at chapter 2. And this is quite interesting. I wonder what's going to happen to Sarah and Lauren. Lauren has got a really huge grudge over Sarah. Sarah's like the popular one, and Lauren's just like, ew. So here we go. Chapter 2. I never walked home with Sarah. Allie and I usually scuffed along the sidewalk, kicking at dead leaves, and turned toward either her house or Aunt Mel's. But today, Allie stayed for band practice, and I went back home alone. Sarah was about a block ahead of me, and I kept it that way. I didn't feel like talking to Sarah any more than I had to. It wasn't surprising when a car slid to the curb and the man in it leaned over to talk to Sarah. Her body language could be read without any trouble as she hurried to the car and got in. What was surprising was that the man in the car was Sheriff Ash Norval. Pause. Sarah is 17. She got in the car with Sheriff Ash Norval. Now, what intentions could Mr. Ash Norval have for Sarah? Do we have a scandal? I don't know. We're going to find out. Sarah didn't show up again until time for supper. And then she was a few minutes late. Aunt Mel, her eyes on the blueberry muffins she had just taken out of the oven, said, "Sarah, things are getting cold." "Sorry," Sarah answered, pulling out her chair. "I had a project to work on at the school library. I had to stay late." I stared across the table at Sarah, and her blue eyes were as clear as unmuddied spring water. "I noticed you talking to Sheriff Norval today," I said, not dropping my gaze for a minute. Aunt Mel put down her fork and leaned forward. "Whatever for?" she asked. Sarah didn't stop eating. "He just wanted to ask me about my birth date," she said. "There was some mix-up on the records, and the county welfare agent asked him to find out." Aunt Mel began to talk about the county welfare's agent's cousin, who was thinking of moving to Oklahoma and going into business of raising chickens. Big career shift. I tuned it out, so I was startled when Aunt Mel suddenly said, "Lauren, your mind's off skittering, and I just told you that I'm going to a meeting of the church ladies tonight." "That's nice, Aunt Mel," I said. "Hope you have a good time." I got up to clear the table and scrape the dishes. You can lend Lauren a hand," Aunt Mel told Sarah as she rose from her chair. I knew that was the last thing Sarah had in mind, and I was grateful that Aunt Mel knew it too. Sarah nodded as though something were bothering her and picked up a couple of empty glasses. "You're going to be in early, aren't you?" Sarah asked Aunt Mel. She chuckled. "Sounds as though you're the mother hen and I'm the chick." I just meant..." It was the first time I had ever seen Sarah flustered. "Should be about 10:30, Aunt Mel said. She flipped off her apron and hung it on a hook behind the door in one unbroken movement. "I'm running late," she said. "Gotta pick up Feeney in a couple of minutes. Y'all take care now while I'm gone. Do your homework." Quickly, she gathered some of the muffins into a dish and put a paper napkin over it. "Gonna take these to Feeney. She's a poor cook, and bless Fant's heart, he deserves something tasty once in a while." I laughed with Aunt Mel, and for a moment we were close, sharing a private family joke. "Have a good time at your meeting," Sarah said. Aunt Mel checked all the doors, making sure they were locked. She'd done this ever since a drunk from the lumber camp staggered into Iva Jean Crater's kitchen and hit her on the head with a wooden basting spoon. Wow. Each time Aunt Mel locked the doors, she mustered under her breath how, in a small town, you shouldn't have such worries. I never worried. As I recall the story, Iva Jean recovered her wits enough to dump her whole pot of stew on the man. They had to take him to the hospital down in Beaumont. Iva Jean got nothing out of it except a small bump on her forehead and a story that she told for 2 months solid to anyone who would stand still long enough to hear it. When Aunt Mel had gone, Sarah turned a glass around on her finger, rubbing the dish towel against the sides and watching it shine. "This reminds me of when I was younger, with my mother," she said. "We'd work together in the kitchen and we'd laugh and she'd tell me little stories and sometimes sing to me." "That would be nice," I said. Another world I'd never know. Excuse me. "And sometimes my father would come in too. It wasn't a very big kitchen, so we'd giggle and get in each other's way, and then my father would pick me up and they'd hug me and kiss me." I could only nod. There was a tight place in my chest. I didn't mean to be jealous of Sarah, and I was glad she had such a wonderful family life, but every time I tried to picture myself in a situation like that, full of warmth and love, the pictures popped like bubble gum, and I was left with an even greater emptiness than before. "Are you listening to me?" Sarah said. "I was telling you about my mother and father would take me to the zoo." I let the dirty water run out of the sink, wiped my hands on the trailing end of the dish towel Sarah was holding, and shook my head. "Sarah, why did you tell Aunt Mel that you were at the school library today? I saw you get in Sheriff Norvell's car with him and drive off." Sarah's eyes opened a little wider. "And you're going to tell Aunt Mel? Is that it?" "No," I said. "I don't tell Aunt Mel anything about you." I walked out of the kitchen, went into the living room, dropped into a chair, and picked up a magazine. Sarah followed me, dish towel still in her hands. "What do you mean, anything?" she demanded. "You know what I mean." Sarah perched on the arm of the overstuffed chair. "No," she said quietly. "I can't imagine what you're talking about." I shouldn't have let myself get so angry. I told myself later that it was dumb, that nothing Sarah did or said should have made any difference to me, but at the moment I couldn't stand her prissiness. And I said, "Who do you think you're fooling, Sarah? You think you can sneak in and out of the house without anyone's knowings about it?" Sarah slid down into the chair, dropping the towel on the floor. She smiled at me, and the smile was one of contempt. "Spying, are you? Hoping to find out what I've got that you wish you had?" Okay. She's a butthole. That's just rude. All right. I'm going to stop recording and then start back because we're fixing to hit recording limit. 1 second. And we're back. Okay. I just didn't want to run out of time and it cut me off. All right. "Don't be stupid," I yelled. "I wasn't spying on you." "Sure you were," she leaned forward. "Would you like me to tell you who I go out with and what we do? Would you want to know what it's like to be with a real man who buys you a drink and drives home with you under the arches of trees that make it so dark you can shut up?" I screamed at her. I jumped to my feet. But Sarah was on her feet too, facing me. "It's none of your business what I do or where I go," she yelled. "And don't think you can snitch to Aunt Mel because I'll deny it. I told you that I have no intention of telling her." I slammed the magazine against the wall. "Oh, and why don't you get out of here? I wish you'd go back to wherever you came from and never come back." Suddenly, Sarah's voice was as soft as a kitten fur. Why don't you go all the way and wish I were dead? She smiled lazily. The words seemed to hang into a little pool of quiet air as the remembered echoes of our shouts banged around the walls and faded away. In the strange stillness, I lowered my voice too. I'd never wish that on anyone, I said. She was smiling, and her smile was almost one of delight. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked her. What's the matter with you? I was just thinking about what you said, she giggled. The way she was acting made me feel creepy. You're weird, I told her, and I went upstairs to my room to study. I had nothing more to say to Sarah. The murmur of her voice carried up the stairs. She was on the phone, probably canceling a late date. For a moment, I wondered whom the date had been with. Then I told myself firmly that I didn't care. Sarah and I didn't talk to each other the next morning on the way to school, but lunchtime, when Allie and I settled at our favorite table in the corner, Sarah joined us. Everybody will be here in a few minutes, Sarah said. She motioned an eager sophomore away from the table with an imperious wave of her hand that almost caused him to drop his tray. What's this all about? I asked, swinging one leg over the bench. Allie grabbed my arm. Don't get up, Lauren. We're having a meeting. What kind of meeting? About Roberta's seance, Allie said. That's dumb. No. At least stay and listen, Allie said. Sarah just sat and watched me. I stared at her. Please stay, Sarah said. The word please stunned me so much I settled down again. Luema joined us, fishing dill pickles out of a plastic bag and drawling through her nose. This is the most exciting thing I've ever heard of. She was getting strands of her long, pale hair in with the dripping pickles, and I turned away, unable to watch. Maddie and Dana plopped onto the bench, tucking their legs under the table. They had brought sack lunches, too. Dana's plump fingers spread out a paper napkin and dumped the contents of her sack on it. I'm so sorry, man. Half a cheese sandwich and 2 carrot sticks. Dana was perpetually on a diet. When Roberta arrived at the table, I don't know. Suddenly I realized she was sitting there. Oh, wait. Back up. Flip it and reverse it. All right. When Roberta arrived at the table, I don't know. Suddenly I realized she was sitting there in the last place on the inn, looking from one to the other of us with big owl eyes, blinking a bit as though someone were going to tell her to leave. Hi, Roberta, I said. The others looked at her eagerly. Her black hair was tied back on her neck with a blue ribbon. For the first time I noticed that her eyes were as black as her hair. She was really a beautiful girl, and yet she wasn't. What was there about Roberta that... Allie interrupted my thoughts by saying, Well, Roberta, tell us, are we going to have a seance? I've only done it a few times, Roberta said, but her eyes had begun to spark and her cheeks grew pink. I mean, if you're really sure you want me to do this. We're sure, Sarah said, leaning forward eagerly. Wait a minute, I said. What are we getting into? It's just for fun, Dana told me. What? Maddie said. I thought about Aunt Mel. Listen, the adults in this town will have all kinds of a tizzy if they knew about this. So we won't let them know, Luema said. Have y'all talked about this before? I asked. I looked at each in turn. Allie was the only one with the grace to look embarrassed. Well, we knew you'd have to be talked into it, Lauren. She shrugged. But it's a game. It's just for fun. Lots of people do this. Roberta sucked in her breath. It's not a game, Allie. Allie looked bewildered. It's not? I really can contact those who have gone beyond, Roberta whispered. It was noisy as usual in the cafeteria, but we all heard her. This is not something for children, Sarah said. She looked right at me. Oh. Allie answered, We're not children. Luema wiped some pickle juice off her chin and spoke up. We've all read about seances and we've seen things about them in movies. Now's our chance to really be involved in one. I think it's exciting. It can't hurt us, Dana said. She glanced at Roberta. Can it? We simply contact the spirits, Roberta said. We talk to them. We receive any messages that they may want to send us. That's all there is to it. Somehow Roberta seemed to have grown taller. She was sitting on the bench, back as straight as the little plastic Buddhas in the gift shop. Her hands were resting, palms up in her lap, and her eyes were steady and calm. I got the feeling she was ready to have the seance at any moment, if we'd just ask her. I think we're all agreed that we want a seance, Sarah said. It's just a matter of choosing a time and place. I didn't say I was going along with this, I told her. Please come, Lauren, Allie said. I know I'm going to be terrified, and I want you to be there. To protect you? I laughed. Lauren's afraid to come, Sarah said. Lauren wouldn't be afraid of a seance, Allie said, especially since she doesn't believe in them. Sarah continued, Lauren's afraid of something else. She's afraid her wish will come true. What wish? Maddie asked. I could feel my cheeks grow warm. Was it embarrassment or anger? I didn't know. Obviously, it means a great deal to you to have me there. Yes, it does, Sarah said. I knew there was more coming, but I could see that Sarah wasn't going to tell me her reasons then and there. Perhaps curiosity got the best of me. I shrugged and said, All right, I'll come. The bell rang, and people began to get up from their tables. Roberta leaned toward us quickly. Friday night, she said. The time of the full moon is the best time of all. Where will we meet? Dana asked. At my house, Roberta said. My parents are going to Houston overnight on business. We'll all have the house to ourselves. Okay. Okay, Maddie said. We'll be there. Next to me, I could feel Allie shudder. I knew how she felt. I was trying to remember what had been said, why I had found myself agreeing to go along with this. I didn't really want to go to a seance. I stood up and found Sarah across from me. Her eyes were still fastened on mine. That was my answer. I was really going to prove something to Sarah. Or was it to myself? Maybe she was right. Maybe I was hoping my wish would come true. That is the end of chapter 2. So, my pretties, we're going to leave off. I'm going to read 2 chapters at a time of the seance. This is an old book, I'm trying to remember when I got this book. Let's see. This was... I wish I could see. Let's see if I can find it. I got this book. Yep. 2004. I got this book in 2004. So, I was a little middle school baby when I got this. So, yeah. This is gonna be, I can't believe I got it and then just never read it. I was just like, I got it for the cover, really. You know how when you're younger and you pick out a book because of the cover? I used to do that. But now, I actually read books that are, a lot to handle here on, Sam's Pretty Paranormal. Probably can't read those. I read a lot of dark romance novels, and they can get spicy, and they can get they're really good. The two that I recommend is Her Soul to Take and Haunting Adeline is really good. It is really, really good. So I recommend those two books if you like dark romance books. If not, then maybe not. I am also reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm reading several books, so this is a problem. I bounce in between a lot of books. But anyways, this has been really fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed this Sam's Pretty Paranormal reading book edition. What do we call this? Let me know. And do you like this microphone? Because I think I do. I almost read this book outside. I almost done a repeat of the other night. I was like, maybe I should like, revive my, like try again and go back out there. And I chickened out again because I was like, you know what? I'm not reading this book outside. I'm not gonna do it. So with that being said, this has been Sam's Pretty Paranormal not live podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. So, with that being said, please let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this. Smash that likey button. And if you're new, subscribe. Give me a chance. What do you know? You never know what's going to happen over here. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff happening on Sam's Pretty Paranormal. And you don't want to miss it. So, alright. Stay sweet. Stay smart. And stay safe. And until next time, don't forget to sleep with your lights on.